So I said, we're going to the hospital. You're going to get help. In the meantime, Jenny called me and said, Michael called me. You need to go back home because the squad's there and the police are there. So I turned around calmly, listening to my Christian music, and took him back home. And he got out of the car, and I can't even tell you the words I used. Michael can. I just lost it. I told him, you have to get help. I screamed, you have to get help. And so they took him. And that was a real wake up call for me.
He never got into a whole lot of trouble. Middle school years, we had, normal boy middle school issues, but nothing out of hand.
He was a great soccer player as a child. We laugh about all the games we sat through storms, snowstorms, rainstorms, since he was 4 years old. And then when he got into high school, things started to change.
Just teenage rebellion and just, we've raised four children and we have 8 grandchildren, 16 great-grandchildren. So you see a lot of moods and things through all that, and it just seemed typical.
After high school, he definitely hit a spiral. He moved out of the house fairly quickly. He would not follow our rules. He wanted to continue to use. At that point, I was not real sure what he was using. I knew he was smoking marijuana, but I did not know the extent of everything else.
Like, how do you feel about that? Like, how do you kind of control that anxiety and that kind of terror that I imagine as a mother kind of creeps up? So
when you find out?
Yeah.
Honestly, I felt I was kind of a mess. I felt very guilty. I felt like I had failed. I felt like I was afraid he was going to die. Mm-hmm. I wanted to fix everything, and you can't. So I really had a hard time. Yeah. I mean, there was no controlling the feelings, you're just kind of going day to day, and everything's going on around you, but you just feel like your whole life is crumbling.
He would get money from her, and then he would come to my house, and I would give him money, and he'd always say it was for gas or food. And Jenny said one day, if you give Michael money, you're killing him. Mm-hmm. And Michael came one day, and I said, Michael, I talked to your mother, and she told me that if I give you money, I'm killing you. And I'm not going to kill my grandson.
We locked up our medications. And I remember feeling bad. I didn't want people, I heard people talk about addicts. And sometimes it comes off like they're monsters. And I always said, my grandson is not a monster. And I didn't want him to feel that way. I stopped giving. I always told him I loved him, and I prayed for him. I would just text him and tell him I loved him and pray for him, but no more money, no more place to live. Yeah. And he learned, I think when we stopped that, to take care of himself.
I was doing everything for him that he should have been doing on his own. So I wasn't necessarily giving him money. I wasn't, enabling in that way. I had set boundaries in that way, but I was very like wanted to fix it still, trying to control, like make sure he got to appointments and dragging him out of bed to do this, or making, I'm calling in refills for his prescriptions, and I'm, and he should have been doing all that. And when I realized that and stopped doing it, I think you have this fear, though. You have to let go of the fear because you have this fear that if you don't do it, they're going to use, or if you don't do it, they're going to die. And it's almost like you're trying to make yourself feel better, but you're making things worse,
Yeah.
I think you go into this, like, you should do it this way, and you need to do this, and, and that just pushes him away, makes him edgy and agitated. And so I think now I'm more of a, I listen and give advice, to a point, and, just let him know that I'm here. I think he respects me a lot more now for that. We have a better relationship. Yeah.
So as a mother, how do you deal with the grief of being a mother of an addict? That seems heavy to me.
It is. Everything is going on around you. You still have to go to work. You still have other kids to take care of. Everything's just happening, and you just feel like inside you're crumbling. Your kid's dying. But you have to just go on, and that doesn't mean that you don't love them, and that doesn't mean that you don't care or you don't want them to get better. It just means that, you can't let their addiction control your life.
The people at the meetings change you too, because there are some really desperate situations. And we had a lot of family support, which we're grateful for. But there are some people out there who don't have it.
And it hasn't always been that way. I just want to make sure that's clear. We definitely worked against each other, all of us. We've always been a close family, but there was a time where we were working against each other. But I think Jenny was
Everybody
the beginning.
had their different ideas on how to handle it.
Right.
And nobody, it was hard to come together. But when we finally came together.
I had a lot of whys, and it just took me longer. And once I started going to the meetings, plus attending meetings at church, that's when my let go happened, and I wasn't as consumed constantly. I did harm to everybody by asking questions. I called Jenny, have you heard from Michael? And now I really regret it because it drove her nuts when she was trying to cope. And
I was very open with everybody about what was happening, and the feelings I got back from people were amazing. I don't remember one time ever anybody saying anything negative. I really have high hopes for him. I really feel like, he can really do whatever he wants to do. He's a bright man. He's very loving to his kids. And I'm very surprised at how patient he is. He's a great father. And I feel like if he still works on himself, and continues to work his program, whatever works best for him, that he's going to stay successful.